Lilo and Stitch, which, potentially will blow the roof off of our weekend with the other Tom Cruise.
Yeah, they call him Lesser Tom in Canada. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, they call him Lesser Tom.
That's not me, Tom. I don't call you that.
Well, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well, despite the weather.
How is it out there? It's rainy out, right?
It's a little rainy and it's cold.
Welcome to Canada.
I know.
Welcome to Canada.
I'm from Detroit, so I know it well.
Yeah, you're just across the border there.
Just across the border.
Did you ever nip into Windsor? Did you ever go across?
I used to go to Stratford for the Shakespeare Festival, and so we used to go across the Ambassador Bridge, and so yes, and through the tunnel, and I know it well.
Very cool. Congrats on the Lilo and Stitch.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I read a story that when you were is this true that your kids were sort of encouraging you to do this?
Yes.
Because there was some fear around Lilo and Stitch in the house growing up. Is this right?
Well, they were there was, but they were to their credit, they were little, and the movie, they were born in 2006 and the movie came out in 2002. So, children want the latest and greatest. So to go back and show them something that already opened at that age, they're, Daddy, no. Ooh, scary, Daddy. So, they were, it's okay. That's fine. With them, we watched all the movies they watched about 17 times each. So,
what were they now?
What movies were they?
Yeah.
Oh, Bolt and Cars and the Veggie Tales. And, we had a whole lot of, we saw them each of the movies at least 10, 12 times. But it's Tangled and all the ones that came out that we were in it. But unfortunately, this came out before they were born, and so trying to go back, a little tricky. But my daughter was at the premiere.
I saw that, yeah.
And my son was at saw it with me for a screening for me, so it was good.
Am I right that they were encouraging of you to do this? They said you should do this?
Sometimes, if they're around and they get in the mix of decisions, sometimes they do. My daughter, I was trying on some clothes with the stylist, and my daughter said, "Oh, Dad, that's it. That's the one there."
That's nice.
So they're in it. They're 19 now, so they've seen a lot with the advent of the internet. They grew up with the TikTok. My daughter does TikTok videos and surprises us, and all of a sudden we're in one. I'm in my underwear. What am I doing? How did this happen? So
that's very comfortable. That's great.
Yes,
Yeah,
very comfortable.
I'm sure you love that.
Dad, do you mind? We're going to do a TikTok now. Oh, what we? I'm just passing through. What are you doing? Okay, yeah, go, Dad.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. Hey,
You get her to call your agent.
Yes, she is my agent now. So anyway, yes, we are. They lead and we follow at times. Yes.
How did you approach the character of Cobra Bubbles?
I didn't know the original very well at all. So I approached it like I would. He's a very tight gentleman, and I said I've played those characters before, and but he has an arc. He travels. So I said, I like that, so I'm good. So let's stumble into the turn, which is what we did, and which happened somewhere around when the ladies were singing in the hammock, and I overhear. So that was a very, very wonderful scene to actually, to see his emotional side. So it was nice.
He's this tough guy up to that moment. He's
Yes.
this tough CIA operative investigating aliens. Then there's a little bit of a moment where there's some sweetness between the orphaned sisters who are left behind looking after this alien, and they sing this beautiful old Hawaiian song, Aloha Hawaii, which is Until We Meet Again, written by the Queen of Hawaii.
Yes, it was.
As she was departing after the junta in Hawaii,
Which is very sad. We won't go there.
It's a very, very sad story.
Yes,
So but it has turned into a real a song of family in Hawaii, and your character hears them, and something turns them.
That's what's so moving, I believe, about the story, is that we all are Stitches, and we all are Laylas, and Leela's, and so we really want to. We all have to make a transition. We have to make transitions in life, and this is one of those where we have to make a decision. And Stitch has to make a decision. Lilo has to make a decision. The sister Nani has to make a decision. So we all Miss Keikoa has. I mean that's the. I think that's what touches people so deeply about our stories, that we all are all those characters. All those characters are in us, and we all get to that point in our lives where it's just you and sitting on the edge of the bed at 2 a.m, and you've got to make a decision tomorrow. And the which is why I think we, the emotions are coming up in people when they're watching the movie, because they, the Stitch is just, and you love him, and he's like, oh, calm down, boy, but no, he's so cute. So that's all of us feel that. That's all of us. Our all of us are the 3-year-old and 5-year-old. And some people never make that turn to sharing is caring, get to the center of that, and they always want it their way. And that you see him in the beginning of the movie. He is a 3-year-old, with a lot of power.
And then towards the end, that they make the turn.
Yes, so it's just beautiful to watch that happen. It's beautiful to, which is what our lovely movie, the power of our movie is where it resonates, is that each of us have to make that turn, and some of us decide not to, and what the repercussions of that are.
One of the things I found very interesting getting ready for this interview and learning more about you is you weren't much older than 3 years old yourself when you were growing up in Detroit. And I read stories about you going down to Motown, where the studios were, sitting on the steps and watching musicians come in and out. Do you remember who you saw?
Oh, no. I was 6 and 7, I think 5. We lived 8 houses down from Hitsville.
Cool.
Which is Motown, which is a museum now. There's the 2 buildings there, and when we go by there, it's packed over there all the time. People go in there, but we would go over there and sit. It was just because where we lived, there were all these huge mansion that had turned into fourplexes. The lawns were 100 feet lawns. It really let you see what the area used to be like there. Because it was a boulevard, West Grand Boulevard is what the street was. But we would go down there and sit, because we had heard that it was Hitsville, and so we didn't know what that meant. But we knew that people were coming in and out. And we just sit there, just something to do during the summertime.
Just something to do. There was no you weren't drawn to it because there was music being made there. There wasn't
we didn't know anything about it. We were just people were coming up and down and out of there all the time, and I don't know if the stars came out the front door and walked down the long, walkway to the street, or they hopped in their cars in the back. I don't know. So we may have seen, just regular folk coming out, the engineers, or we may have seen, Smokey or Marvin Gaye or whatever, or Diana. And we don't know. We were just sitting there, hey, what you doing over here, kids? Nothing. So we just were something to do in the heat of the summer. Something and parents at that point, my parents, when I was about 9 or 10 or so, they said, just be back when the street lights come on, which is 7 o'clock. Street lights come on, your foot better be on that porch, you're in trouble. And so but within that, I would ride my bike all over the city. So it was a different time.
But your parents obviously had so much love for you. That's one thing that keeps on coming up when I'm doing the research for this. Detroit in the 1960s, especially in 1967 when you were 7 years old. I mean, you saw a lot. I read you talking about during the riots, which were caused by the police raiding a black bar, where people were celebrating the return of Vietnam vets. You were 7 at the time. You talked about seeing tanks roll down your street, wondering what that meant. You've said that Detroit made you feel tough.
Yeah, you had to be. My father worked at the first major supermarket. The grocery stores are making that turn to individual. You get your bread, you get your meat at different stores, to a supermarket. And my father was the manager of one of those. It was called Bilo, and we used to go over there, and he used to teach us about marbling of meat and choosing this and that. And they, when the riots happened, the people were so mad, so incensed. Detroit has got a history with the police that is not good at all. And they burned the store down. So my father had to shift and started going to. We began working for, I believe it was a foreman on the line for Chrysler.
Right.
And then he segued into benefits over at Chrysler. That's where he ended up. So,
I mean, I can't possibly imagine what it's like to grow up as a kid during that.
Grew up with
around the riots like that, to watch tanks go down the streets.
Yeah, it was just I grew up around all black people. We grew up together. We grew up with the music, the Motown music, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, and all the shifts happening with black power, and people used to conk their hair, and but then black power came, and everybody was the naturals, and so it was a whole movement within that city, and we're just trying to stand up and not be beat down by the police. And everywhere you looked was a no, which is the reason why Rosa Parks, was she was eventually moved to Detroit. But it was a real time of trying to find our way and trying to stand up amongst the onslaught of, and the whole country was going through it. You look at the assassinations and eventually the Vietnam War and the lies. We grew, the people in the 50s. The president never lied. The office of the president was something that was,
sacrosanct.
And you move into a period where, and we're juggling and dealing with that now. Where do we look? Where do we go? Where we can say, at least we have. What do we have now? I mean, during that period, young people said, "Don't trust anybody over 30." I mean, it was that whole shift. And what does that do to young people like us? So all of these things that are happening that actually contribute to people becoming who they are. My sister and I. My sister was 2 years older than I, so she was into the Black Panthers and the Black Power, and it was a whole thing that I was 2 years younger and didn't know what all those things she was dealing with, going through. But it changes you and grows you. We had to grow up real quick.
What were your parents' dreams for you?
We knew we weren't coming back home when we left high school.
Right.
We were going to college. We didn't. It was just we knew. So we were, we had to come home with the grades. So it was, we were in the public school right across the street. It was about 2 blocks from us, and but then over the summer of '69, Mayor Coleman Young, God rest his soul, the first African American mayor of Detroit, one of the few in the country, but he told in '69, he told the white people we don't need you, get out of here. Black power. You can't judge it. Don't be judgy. It was a different time. And
your family had just moved into a new home, right?
We moved into a new home. We were 5 bedrooms, small bedrooms with 5 bedrooms, and it was all white, few blacks. And then over that summer of '69, when Coleman Young told the white folks to leave, they did, and our neighborhood shifted overnight from all white and a smattering of blacks to all black and a smattering of whites. And my mother and father realized they would never get their money out of the house. And this public school was 2 blocks away, so they had in their minds we'd be going through there, and then we'd go to the public school down the street, Cooley High, Mumford, whatever, and we would just be, we've arrived. And they had to pivot. We started fighting in the school. Still got our great grades, but we started fighting, and they pulled us out mid-semester and put us in Catholic schools. My mother's was a librarian. One of her best friends worked at a school called Mother of Our Savior. So we went into that school, and then my sister went to the top public school there, which was Cass Tech, and I went to St. Mary's of Redford Middle School, and Then I was my parents put me in the boys club for the summers
Right.
and after school
Yeah.
program. So that's from being there, my whole life's changed.
From being in the boys' club.
Yes.
How?
The camp counselor, the summer camp counselor, was a teacher and track coach over at Detroit Country Day School, and he told which is the premier private school in Michigan, and he told my mother and father that I could get a scholarship and go to that school, and we went and visited, and I fell in love with it, and I applied for the seventh. I took the test for the seventh grade, going to eighth grade, passed it, but for some reason they didn't let me in. And I repeated it for the eighth grade, moved to ninth grade, got in, and the rest is history. Harvard, Yale,
Well, yeah. Let's spend some time there. So you end up going to Harvard to get a degree in history. Then you go to Yale to study drama. One of the reasons I asked you what your parents' dreams were for you is because acting not the most stable job to tell your parents this is. I wish the folks listening could see the head nodding that's happening right now.
Not in 1980. Not in 1981.
What was the reaction from the family? You said I'm going to go. Yeah.
My parents were very supportive, and my mother's sister, Lois, God rest her soul. She said, Courtney. She eventually told me, she said, Courtney, they were not happy.
Yeah.
But they would be supportive with you because that was your dream. They weren't going to mess with your dream, but they were, of course, who works? Nobody, 95% of the people don't work. So it's a different generation. You didn't get a job to follow your dreams. You got a job to pay your bills.
Look after your family.
And look after your family. They didn't have that option, but they set us up so that we could do that. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, Tom. I could not figure it out. I did an internship in my senior year with the law firm, and that I couldn't do that. And mechanical drawing, maybe architecture, too specific. If I'm off a 64th of an inch, the building falls over. I can't do that. I said this is not for me.
Yeah.
So, but when I go to school, when all the young people are there together, we'll figure it out together. And I said, that's my plan. I'll go. And I ran track my first year. I was a hurdler. I was a athlete. I did everything at Detroit Country Day School. And but I walked on for for hurdles. I was a hurdler and long jumper. And so I walked on and was the number 2 hurdler there, and so got my varsity letter. But it wasn't fun anymore. I played 3 sports for 4 years at Country Day, and I was kind of over it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to explore. I wanted to, I had 3 lines in the senior play, and in addition to everything else I was doing, I was, the drama teacher asked me to be in the play. Okay, I said okay. So they'd fly me back in a little teeny biplane from the big track invitational so I can make the curtain for the opening night. And I had 3 lines, and I had the blast.
Yeah.
And he told me, Mr. Ronnie Clemmer told me, please make sure you continue doing this at Harvard. And because I was running track, I couldn't. And then I realized this is not fun anymore. I'm not doing what I said I would do. I'm not meeting people. I'm with the same group of people. So I came over the last hurdle in my freshman year, and I said, that's it. I told my coach, and he was upset with me, but he understood. And so I came back and I started auditioning for shows. Any money I made in my work-study jobs, I would give all of it to my mother and father. And then during the summers, I could do what I wanted to do. So I did workshops and internships and stuff.
Yeah, when you go to Yale Drama School, it seems to be such a transformational time for you. Predominantly white school at the time, and the head of the Yale Drama School was Lloyd Richards, pioneering figure in black theater, who, by the way, from Toronto, born in Toronto.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Lived in Detroit. So,
parents in Canada, carpenter here in Canada. He cast you in August Wilson's play Fences. You've said, I owe my career to Lloyd Richards.
Completely.
What's the most important thing he gave you, or the most important thing he taught you?
He basically said that if I cast you in something, I know you can do it. I'm not going to baby you.
Come on.
So there was no And I'm sure he probably, while we were doing the play, he probably told them not to talk to me, the cast, not to talk to me, to teach me what it was like to be, a 17-year-old. I mean, I didn't have to much. Didn't need to do that, but he did, and
You were like isolated from the rest of the cast?
no, they were around me. They just wouldn't talk to me.
Oh, good.
They were talking amongst themselves, and I would try to interject, and eventually they would. Anyway, what were you saying? So I got it. I got it. I understood.
You got put in your place a little tiny bit.
I got it. And so there was the stage directions were very simple. August was was very simple in stage directions.
He gave you space. He gave you space. He gave you permission.
Man.
He gave you trust to. He didn't have to be didactic. He didn't have to tell you what to do. There's a, you know what I'm hearing there, Courtney? There's trust that comes with that. It's saying, I believe in you, really, when you're not giving anyone too much direction.
Yes. And it's some people can't handle all of that.
Yeah.
All of that trust, all of that space,
yeah.
as you say. And they continue to wait and continue to wait. But once he told me that, I heard him. I heard what he was getting me to do, and I did it. And then he did it another time, just before we went to Broadway in San Francisco. He said, Courtney, there's two physical gestures. Find two physical gestures of James Earl and put them in the play.
Because James Earl Jones, I should mention, James Earl Jones also, who you called Mr. Jones, right? You didn't
call him Sir.
Called him Sir, right? Yeah, you wouldn't call him Jimmy or anything like that.
I think I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy, Tom. And so, he said, find two physical gestures and then put them in. I said, okay, Lloyd. And he never revisited it. He never said once I put him in, because I knew which two they were and I knew where they went. Once I put him in, he never revisited it. He never said, that's it, great job. He did not do that because he knew, and I knew where they went, what they were and where they went, and we moved on. So that's the confidence he had in me, and the confidence he had in everyone. And the play was, they were trying to figure out. James Earl felt the play was unfinished, and August was, this is my play, and Lloyd was the director, and Carol Shorenstein Hayes was a new producer, and so it was a very difficult. And 2 days before we opened, Lloyd Richards stepped out after 3.5 years of being on the road. I'm not going to go against my playwright, and so I'm stepping down.
Man,
2 days before we opened on Broadway, and the biggest, the play eventually made its money back in 4 months.
But still, it must have been unmooring to have the director who you had been working with for 4 years up to that point.
We were in shock.
Yeah.
We were all in shock.
Yeah.
And then, the next day, so we left. And the next day, he came in and announced, I think August came in and announced that Lloyd everyone's agreed to a compromise. I don't remember what the compromise was because the play seemed to be the same to me. And Lloyd, continued on to directing it. And the next night after that, we opened. So it was, you're talking about frightening that potentially that play never was going to open.
Man. In the limited time we have here, I wanted to just ask you a little bit about your preparation for playing Johhnie Cochran in The People vs. O.J. Simpson. So I think most people who would, that was you were called, it was the longest overnight success of all time, or would you call it that? You had been working for decades and decades and decades, and it felt like the world finally caught up. We could talk about that forever. The thing I'm curious about is this. I think most people who are listening to this, who are not actors, even if they are, God knows I'm not, would think that here's how you play Johhnie Cochran. You get as much video footage as you possibly can. You watch his mannerisms. You cast me to do it. I'm going to watch his mannerisms. I'm going to watch the way he speaks. I'm going to watch his cadence. I'm going to watch the way he exists through the world, and then I'm going to embody him. And you said what unlocked John. You didn't watch any of that stuff. You didn't watch any footage. You said what unlocked him for you was learning that his mother put him in an all-white school because she knew he could handle it. You immediately said, God, I know him.
Yeah.
What did that mean?
That was what my parents did with me, and that I knew that he was someone that had to get in there and figure it out, and navigate in uncharted waters and find his way and make people feel okay about who I am. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
We're okay. Oh, you're a nice guy. He's Johnny's a nice guy, Mommy. I met a friend. And, dealing with all of that he had to deal with in that world to get to the place where 40 years later he's representing, because the world, technology and everything changed, but people don't change, Tom. People are the same. They were the same back, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 100 years. They are the same. We all want peace. We all want, but we should be further along, but people are still raising their children with hate. And so instead of going with the technology and growing, we're regressing. So, this is I recognized in him me. And so consequently, because all the experiences I went through in the industry prior to that gave me the confidence to say, I don't need to look at footage. Because if I look at footage, I'm going to be in my head. I don't need to be in my head. The scripts are written. They're great scripts. I think if I just, if I get the spirit of him, people will forgive the specificity, the potentially the lack of specificity about, well, he didn't nod his head like that. And most people didn't know him, so they ain't going to know anyway. So I said, I'm not going to waste my time because we're moving fast. We're doing 3 and 4 episodes at the same time. So in a real sense, I had to do it that way. So, but I was confident. I read my classmate Jeffrey Toobin's book, The Run of His Life. I can't remember specifically what it was. Read it 2, 3, maybe 4 times. And I said, I got it, let's go. And I just jumped in, and it was the run of my life. It was the culmination of all the things that I've done, and it was a beautiful ride.
The way that I've been sort of telling the story with you today has been look what happened to you. Like these various things happen to you. You get to go to school. You meet the right person who sends you to this beautiful day school, who sends you to Harvard, who sends you to Yale. You meet Lloyd. Look what happens to you. The Johhnnie Cochran comes your way. And going back to what we were talking about off the top of Lilo and Stitch, I will say it seemed like you were having a lot of fun doing this role. And talking to you beforehand, we just had a little chat about being in Hawaii. Where does the joy in all of this come from for you? Essentially, what I want to ask is what keeps you going, but maybe the best way to ask it is, where's the joy in acting for you?
The joy is people. It's
not the performance. It's not the.
It's the people. It's the performances are made by the experience. What Dean was able to set up for us. We're all set up for success. So if the environment's not right, we ain't gonna be right. And if you're set up right, your best self, everyone, and if you say to people, this is my idea, make it better, that means, wow, just say it louder, Courtney, just say it louder. I can fully embody the moment. And if we are all allowed to embody our moments, we just get bigger and bigger, and the project just grows and becomes Lilo and Stitch, which potentially will blow the roof off of our weekend with the other Tom Cruise.
Yeah, they call him Lesser Tom in Canada. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, they call him Lesser Tom.
That's not me, Tom. I don't call you that.
It reminds me of what I once asked Tom Hanks. I said, what your colleague. I said, what keeps you going? What is it that you love about acting so much? And he said, it's the hang. It's the environment. It's where I am. I could talk to you about any of these things that we talked about for another 20, 30 minutes. But a great joy to meet you. And thanks so much for coming in.
Pleasure's all mine.